News of the morning. The board of McDonald's announcing yesterday they fired CEO Steve Easterbrook over a consensual relationship with an employee. The company says he demonstrated poor judgment. Easterbrook called the relationship a mistake and said he agrees with the board's decision. Easterbrook, of course, took over as CEO in March 2015. Before today's move, the stock was up 96% under his leadership since he took over. Under that tenure, the company sold off many of its company-owned stores to franchisees. He also presided over the launch of an all-day breakfast. McDonald's has named its USA president, Chris Kempinski, the new CEO of the company. But a lot to talk about there. And joining us to have that conversation right now about leadership change at McDonald's, Jeff Sonnenfeld of the Yale School of Management is also a CNBC contributor. Jeff, this was a huge surprise for investors in McDonald's, employees, management. Clearly made a mistake, but it was a consensual relationship, and we've now had a handful of these situations. How do you read it?
Well, we do see a trend here that of the roughly 90 CEOs who left office last year, is 40% of them was for misconduct. We haven't seen numbers that high. 40% for misconduct, and most of that misconduct had to do with improper relationships at work. But you make an important distinction. This was consensual, but we've seen consensual relationships lead to a flame-out CEO before. Harry Stonecipher at Boeing, quite a number of them. We've seen them at Best Buys and Intel last year, and it's just really a shame. Great news here, though, is that this is a board that's been prepared for the unexpected crises. They've had 7 CEOs over the past 13 years, and they've come off the bench, whether or not it's been 2 unexpected deaths of young CEOs to other unfortunate events. They've had the bench strength ready. Most companies go to an interim in a time like this, but Steve Kempinski's in there as the full-time president and CEO.
But Jeff, it hasn't always been great. How long was Don Thompson there? And that bench strength didn't work out for the company, and it was a relief when Easterbrook got in there.
And since we're just talking amongst ourselves privately, I want to throw out any names that implicate anybody. The intended successor before Thompson came in had this same problem. It was, well, in fact, I'll use a name. It was Ralph Alvarez. He was lined up to be the CEO, and in fact, he'd been forced out of the company years earlier for this kind of misconduct. Right. They brought him back in. I think Jim Skinner was the CEO, brought him back in. They had him lined up, thought he'd learned his lesson, and it was 2 pretty profound strikes against him. So Thompson had been the default candidate, but and it was about, 3.5, 4 years on the job. A wilting store performance and things. I think they're down like 4 or 5% under Thompson, so they had to bring in somebody new. But these transitions have been pretty smooth, even though they've been way too frequent for this amount of time. It's unfortunate how it's unfolded, but not to confuse us with any Me Too issue. I think a major lesson here.
But Becky wants to get in, but just by definition, it's an oxymoron. Consensual sex with a CEO is almost impossible because
it is impossible.
Of the relationship.
And we should mention, by the way, for what it's worth, but I looked, the first thing I looked, he's divorced.
Right.
He's a single man.
Right.
I know that may not matter in this, but I looked to see what
CEOs have power over everyone.
100%, and that's the point. Yeah. In this environment, if you're the CEO of the company, you can't have a relationship with anybody below you, no matter whether you're single or whatever the situation is.